last night, and it was fantastic to watch an NFL game that mattered as the Chiefs and Texans kicked off the NFL season on Thursday Night Football. We will react to that later on in the show. But Zach, we are leading off today's show. I've been teasing these 3 Titans bets you should make before the season starts for now, I feel like 4 days. But we've made it here. I've got 3 Titans bets that you should make before the season. I've already made these bets. I've actually made 4 bets on the Tennessee Titans already for the season. So I'm very excited about this. We're going to have a great show. I'm going to try to win you guys some money. We're also going to give you some free money to bet with. And I also have a hypothetical about Derrick Henry that we're going to play too. Then we're going to react to the Kansas City Chiefs demolishing the Houston Texans and all the good and the bad that happened with last night's NFL season opener. And then ain't that good news for the second week in a row, Zach, is going to get weird. That's just the situation we're at. It got weird last week. It's going to get weird again today. So let's do it. I'm ready for this show. I'm jacked up.
Well, and you will have the 4 when you do get things weird, right?
Yeah.
It will be all you. Before we get started, I am going to ask you guys to do something that Facebook already asked me to do this morning.
Oh,
I'm
really?
just passing along. Yeah, here's a little screenshot, bottom left corner. Share this stream to help A to Z Sports Nashville grow. Zuckerberg has finally gotten the picture.
Interesting.
He's helping us out there.
We've been
Share
telling
this
people
stream to help A to Z Sports Nashville grow. Bottom left corner of your screen.
We've been telling people to share for years, and now Facebook's catching up to us. How about that?
Way to go, Zuck. This one's to Facebook. Way to go. We're going to start with Twitter, though. For Periscope, Jack, we need your help, too. We need you to share the show. We need everybody else watching the show to share the show. We are going to have a great show on this Friday. As Austin alluded to, football is back. I felt like a kid in a candy store last night, and I'll tell you who I saw at the bar. I was at a bar, sitting at a bar. I didn't die, guys. I'm still alive. Had LeBron on one screen, Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson on another. Oh, my gosh. I was like melting. It was unbelievable. And an ice-cold beer right in front of me. Man, it was great Thursday night last night. It could be a great Friday morning if you guys share the show. We need to pop up in your Twitter followers timeline. How that works is you guys retweet the broadcast. I've already mentioned to you Facebook, bottom left corner of your screen. Sharing out of public. Sharing is caring. Woo! Let's get this party started, Austin, because I don't know any of your 3 bets. 0. Yeah. So it's live reaction with the people, Z and the masses reacting to A.
That's right. All right, let's get it going officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Zach Bingham. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at A to Z Sports. You like our Facebook page at A to Z Sports Nashville, YouTube, Twitch. We are Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, and we go live every weekday morning at 8 Central Time. Let's thank our sponsors because they make it happen for you guys and for us. RentersWarehouse.com, the professional landlords in the Nashville area. Hit them up, RentersWarehouse.com. Mandu, the Pulse of Fitness, where one 15-minute workout equals 5 hours in the weight room. Mandu.com, your first workout is free. The Tucker Agency, Nashville's independent insurance agency at tuckertn.com. Calvin and Subtle for your new hardwood floors and finishings, calvinandsettle.com. And the Bone and Joint Institute, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care at boneandjointtn.org is where to hit them up. So I have already placed 4 bets on the Titans for the season. One of them that I'm not talking about today is because I got in while the getting was good and the getting's no longer good. I got in while the Titans were underdogs. This was right after Jadeveon Clowney, the announcement came out that he was signing with the Titans, and that was happening. I picked the Titans, who at the time were a 1.5-point dog. I picked the Titans on the money line to win outright, and I picked them. I put $50 down, Zach, to pick the Titans to win outright plus 105. So that is no longer available because Von Miller gets hurt. Bradley Chubb is not 100% Cortland Sutton, their talented Pro Bowl wide receiver, goes down with an injury in practice yesterday. So guess who's a favorite now? The Titans are currently 2.5-point favorites over the Broncos. So the money line bet is no longer good for the Tennessee Titans. So that's not one of the three I'm presenting to you guys today. Well, but I do have 3 overall bets that are season-long deals that I want to present to you guys because we want to ride these trains together this year. That's the point here.
Well, and you're in a little different section of the casino than Chapstick Malone is. You put down 50, he put down $5,000, $5K. Chapstick Malone, you'll get a like for that, buddy. Right there on Periscope. If I could do it, I would. $5K on the Titans +2 3 weeks ago.
Hey, that's a hell of a
big dogs eat. Right there. Chapstick Malone coming out of the gates hot.
And look, I don't bet thousands of dollars. The biggest bet I've ever made is $100, and I put 50. And look, I have spent $90 on these 4. No, I've spent $100 on these 4 Titans bets. 50 of it being on week 1. The others are lower long-term bets with better odds. So we'll go through all these. I'm excited about this, but yeah, goodbye Chapstick Malone getting in on the Titans while they were underdogs. So Zach, we're gonna go through these Titans bets. And we're going to see which of the 3 you guys like the best. One of them is a super long shot. But here, I think the first one we're going to talk about is the Titans to win the AFC South. Because I think the Titans should win the AFC South. I think they're better than the Colts. I think they're better than the Texans last night. And so the Titans, who have been very close, slow starts have hurt them a lot over the last couple of years. I think one Titans bet you should make absolutely right now is Titans to win the AFC South at +150. It was +175, but Clowney has changed the situation. So I still think whenever it's plus, and all 3 of these are plus bets, right? So you got good odds here. Titans to win the AFC South at +150. I think I put 20. I forget. I think I put 20 on this one at mybookie.ag. We'll tell you how to do that here in a second. But Zach, how do you feel about Titans +150 to win the AFC South?
Well, we'd already kind of talked about this. And look, last night, the Texans losing to the best team or the Super Bowl champions, defending Super Bowl champions, is not indicative of what the Texans could do all season long. They didn't play well. I'm not sitting here saying the Texans are going to win, but the best money prior to the season was actually on the Texans because of the odds. It was not the Titans or the Colts. Correct?
Right. Yes.
So, to take the bet, I wouldn't necessarily take the.
You don't feel confident the Titans winning the.
Well,
AFC
I told you yesterday, and we made a bet yesterday. My worry is the Colts. Because of the string of games you look at the schedule, right? And we talked about this at length. I would be worried if I'm a Titans fan. I think the Colts and the Titans, they're in a 2-horse race at the end of the season. But that string of games that the Titans have to play that goes Indy, Baltimore, Indy, that's murderer's row. Those 3 straight weeks of very, very tough competition. I think Phillip Rivers is going to improve the Indianapolis Colts. I think they've improved their roster already, and they've got a coach that has proven that he can win. I would not take this bet because of the Colts and the unknowing of what they were able to accomplish last year with Jacoby Brissett. And then the Colts only got better, correct? They improved the running game. They improved their wide receivers by drafting Michael Pittman Jr. We know that Leonard is a beast. We know their offensive line is vastly improved for the last couple of years ago. Their quarterback play, Phillip Rivers is better than Jacoby Brissett. So to win the South, look, I think it's going to be tight, but I don't know if I put money down on this particular bet. I don't know your other 2 bets, but this is not the one I'm riding and die with because Indy, Baltimore, Indy.
And Ethan Randy says making a bet means taking a risk. So Zach is not taking this risk. +150 does not give you.
I find other risks to take. Yeah, that's how I would. I'd find other bets to make.
So would you take? I mean, because we already talked about you would take the Texans at I think they're +375 or 325 at this point
prior to the season.
But after last night, you're out on that. So you would have felt bad.
Well, I don't know how much the odds have changed.
I'm trying to find it right now.
Like that's why you can't do this, is because every single time a game is played, Vegas goes to their board and calculates it.
Yeah. And I should have I thought about putting money on the Chiefs minus 13.5 at halftime, and then they came out and scored real quick, and that went up to 15, and it didn't do it. They won by 14. They would have covered the 13.5, but they didn't cover the 15.5. So look, like, things change all the time. But I definitely feel comfortable, and I did it. I put $20 to win 30 on the Titans plus 150 to win the AFC South. So that is bet number one. Bet number two, Zach, is the over-under for win total for the Tennessee Titans this year. We both gave our season predictions for the Titans yesterday, and we'll rehash those. But would you take Titans over 9 wins at plus 110? Over 9 wins at plus 110, meaning there is an ability to push here where everything's okay. So it's not 9.5, but 9 at plus 110. Would you take over 9 wins? Because I sure as hell did.
This is a bet I would take. I believe they are going to win 10 games. I predicted 10-6. You predicted 11-5 yesterday in our season preview. This makes sense. 9 is a good number, right? If it was 10, it'd be tough because I think I would push, right? But I think this is a good bet. I truly do. 9 is a good number. Now, here's the outlier. Here is the outlier. I don't know if you've thought about, Austin.
Okay.
The Titans haven't had one of these. I don't know. I don't think ever in the history of the Tennessee Titans. But it is more of a trend because of the change of the overtime regular season rules. Ties. What happens, right? That possible win now goes down with a tie. And as we've seen over the last couple of years, it has trended. More teams have tied. And I don't think that scares me off of the bet, but I definitely think about that before placing it.
Yeah, that didn't freak me out at all. So I put money down on Titans over.
How much did you put?
I'll have to go find it. And
this is important, right?
Well, I've already jumped off of my page where I had my open bets all listed, and I went to go look for something else.
Well, while you go look for that, one asks, "What's the site?" That's a really good question.
Yes. So you can
go dive and you find out all the information you need, all the money that you've put down, so you have the adequate information for this show. And I will tell Juan what the site is. That site is very easy. It's MyBookie, and Juan, we've hooked you up. My Titans. You put $100 in. Your bank account within MyBookie has $200 in it. If you put $500 in, your bank account has $1,000 in it. That's mybookie.ag, code MyTitans. This is huge, and it's huge for you guys. This is why we partnered over the first couple of weeks with MyBookie, is to give back to our Titans community and say, hey, look, you guys want to go make bets? Let's hook them up. My Titans is the code at mybookie.ag.
All right, A to Z Sports. I'm going to go over all the money I've put down the Titans. I've made 4 bets. The one that I put $50 on is no longer available because I got the odds before they changed. I put $50 on the Titans plus 105 to win outright over the Broncos. That was when the Titans were a 1-point dog. They're now currently 2.5-point favorites. I put $20 down on the Titans plus 150 to win the AFC South. So that is out there, and I think that is a really good bet. And then I put $15 down on Titans over 9 wins this year at plus 110. So that's what we've talked about so far, is that $15 for the over 9, $20 for winning the AFC South, and then the $50 for winning outright versus the Broncos when the odds were in my favor. Ethan Ramsey brings us up. Wait, so the Titans will win. You think the Titans will win over 9 games, but you're not confident about them winning the division? Because you said you would not take the plus 150 to win the AFC South.
Yeah, I think the Colts, again, it's going to be a battle with the Colts.
But you would take them to go over 9 wins.
Yes, I would take them to go over 9 wins. Well, look at the division. So the Titans play who to end the season?
The Titans play the Texans the last game of the year.
Who do the Colts play?
I'm guessing the Jaguars because it's always divisional.
Bingo. So I took that into account too, right? So I'm no dummy. I did my homework.
Yeah.
That's another bet. And you know who the Titans play the second to last game of the season?
The Lions, the Packers,
No.
Packers.
The Packers, right?
And then
So
the Lions
Packers, Texans. That's pretty tough sledding. You know who the Colts? This is a tough game. It's actually going to be a really good game at Pittsburgh. That Week 16 Colts at Pittsburgh could be a defining moment for not only those two teams but the Titans, because that's a huge AFC battle. So, but that's those last two games. The Colts have the upper hand because they play the Jags at the end of the season.
Yes. All right, real quick. So I'll rehash my bets here in a second, and we'll get to the third bet that I have. But before we do that, let me tell you guys about Renters Warehouse. RentersWarehouse.com. They're the professional landlords in the Nashville area. Go there, renterswarehouse.com, to find out how much your home can rent for. There are so many different ways that Renters Warehouse can help you out during this pandemic. Don't panic, sell your home. You can use Renters Warehouse there. If you need to create some extra cash, extra income, new cash flow, mailbox money, as they say, renterswarehouse.com is a great way to build long-term wealth and equity. Renterswarehouse.com.
Kind of funny if you go through the comments. Jared says I was more impressed with the Texans than I thought I would be. We'll talk about that shortly.
Yes.
And then Louis says the Texans are going 6-10. So like everybody has their opinion on what happened last night. I'm glad.
This morning, Clay Travis was like, "It's not crazy to think that the Texans could start 1-6." I'm like, "Good Lord, overreact much?" I mean, they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who have an unbelievable offense. Everybody's back on that offense. And then they add, so we'll talk about that later. I'm not going to get too much into that. A to Z Sports here live on a Friday, going over Titans bets to take before the season starts. Put money down, mybookie.ag, code MyTitans to double your first deposit. Put money down on the Titans to win the AFC South at plus 150. Also, take the Titans over 9 wins at plus 110. Here is the third bet that is super long shot, but I kind of like it. And we're going to have a bigger conversation about this. The odds are plus 5,000, and that is Derrick Henry to win the NFL MVP. Derrick Henry to win the NFL MVP at plus 5,000. So what I did here is I put $10 down because I'm not going to waste a lot of money because that's a long shot. But that $10 could turn into $500. So Derrick Henry plus 5,000 to win the NFL MVP. And let's just think about this for a second, because I find it interesting. Because Derrick Henry, if the Titans, who we think are going to be very good, if they are the 1 or the 2 seed in the AFC, the MVP candidate is going to be Derrick Henry on the Titans. It's not going to be Ryan Tannehill. Derrick Henry will get that national love, and if he has a season where he could lead the NFL in rushing again, where he scores over 15 touchdowns on the ground again, this is a long-term bet that is a long shot bet. But I think it's worth putting a little bit down to win big, just in case something crazy happens and Derrick Henry is an MVP candidate.
So it's pretty crazy. Because if you look at the history of the league, especially recently, right? Like $10. We're going to talk about this a little bit.
I'm playing with free money because my bookie doubles your account. So I'm basically doing this.
Yeah, and that's fine. But what I'm saying is, in today's age, Derrick Henry's season has to be historic, right? I mean, I think we all know that, because he has to beat out the quarterback. And in today's age, you don't beat out the quarterback. Do you know when the last time a running back won the MVP, Austin?
Yeah, Adrian Peterson in 2012.
Right? So that was a long time ago. The game has changed a lot
since 2012.
And what did it take for Adrian Peterson to do that?
Was that a 2,000-yard season?
Yes, it was. So there's your bar, bud. If you're going to win this money, Derrick Henry has to rush for at least 2,000 yards. That, my friend, that's where you start. Look, it's not a lot of money, so I don't completely hate it, but you probably lost a $10 bill.
But again, it was free because my bookie with code.
You can justify it however you want, right? I mean,
Right.
you can justify spending anything, but we're talking about bets. You probably wasted $10 because the bar is so high on top of the competition of the era of football they play in. The quarterback wins the MVP.
Right. But in the year that Adrian Peterson won the MVP in 2012, he had just over 2,000 yards and he had 12 rushing touchdowns. Derrick Henry's is going to have a lot of rushing touchdowns. Obviously, we're counting for full health this year. But the guy on the tear that he was on once Tannehill took over, Derrick Henry was a beast. He was also running with an injured hamstring at times, which was crazy. I think he's a touchdown machine where Adrian Peterson was not. But the Vikings in 2012 were similar to the Titans in 2020. Is that they are run-first teams and they have explosive capability. And I think because Derrick Henry can hit a home run and hits many home runs when it comes to the running game, I think this is a really good long-term bet. Look, the odds are long. It's plus 5,000. But why the hell not? That's my thought, is why the hell not for Derrick Henry?
Well, so to answer your question, I don't love the bet. I don't. But the one, I guess, benefit, so going back at Adrian Peterson's 2012 season, he had a string of games. It was a lot better than Derrick Henry's, but he had a string of games very similar to a couple of years ago when Derrick Henry reeled off the 238, the 153s, except Adrian Peterson, this is crazy. All right, let's start from week 7. Mm-hmm. 153, 123, 182, 171, 108, 210, 154, 212, 86, and then 199.
Oh, look, we know in Nashville what a 2,000-yard season looks like.
So to that point, Adrian Peterson was a much more popular commodity in 2012 than obviously CJ2K was in 2008 when he had his 2,000 yards because he didn't win the MVP.
2009.
Or in 2009. And Adrian Peterson was a more known commodity than Derrick Henry is today. I mean, Derrick Henry needs he needs 2 more seasons to start gaining the notoriety of the everyday common fan.
I mean, you can go to mybookie.ag's homepage, and right there is a graphic on the center homepage of Derrick Henry flexing. Derrick Henry is getting national attention. He was singing on lip singing on a NFL ad for Football's Back. Derrick Henry is becoming
more out there.
He's becoming a national superstar before our eyes because
he is not yet.
I think he is. He's not yet to the level that Adrian Peterson was in 2012, but he is a national superstar right now.
And Josh brings up a point. He did that coming off of an ACL tear.
Is that what that was?
I believe it. Josh is correct.
No, that's not correct because he tore his ACL in 2014. In the year 2015, he came back and had 1,400 yards, I believe. Because he only played 1 game in 2014, which would make sense for a torn ACL.
And so Stanley says, Zach, are you saying Derrick Henry can't do it? I'm not saying he can't. I think he is capable of doing it, but the odds are plus 5,000.
Yeah, for a reason.
Yeah.
So here's what I want to do. I want to ask you this question, Zach. I want to ask you, what would have to happen for Derrick Henry to be an MVP candidate? I'm not saying for him to win. But what would have to happen for Derrick Henry to be an MVP finalist? And that involves the Titans win-loss record. It involves, obviously, Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and everybody else. But what would have to happen for Derrick Henry to be an MVP candidate? And while we're all thinking about our answers, tell the people about Calvin and Subtle.
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. Calvin and Subtle is where you need to get your hardwood floors. They can take care of you at 615-448-6414. They do hardwood and finishings. Rip up that old carpet and upgrade your house today. Your wife and your kids are going to be like, Dad, you are the man. This house is unbelievable. I love it so much better than this old nasty carpet because old Max was peeing all over it during quarantine. Now that thing is up. You've put in brand new hardwood floors, cost-effective hardwood floors that just took a week or 2 to install. They order the material. You pick out your perfect hardwood floor from on $1.99 per square foot to $30 per square foot. They've got the laps of luxury. They also have cost-effective hardwood flooring. That's calvinandsettle.com, or give them a call at 615-448-6414.
All right, A to Z Sports. The bets we're talking about today, I have all made I've made all of them at mybookie.ag. I used code MyTitans. I doubled my first deposit. I put $150 in. I got $150 of free play. You can do that all the way up to $1,000. So mybookie.ag, code MyTitans. That's exactly where I've made all of these bets we're talking about. So again, I put money down on the Titans plus 150 to win the AFC South. I've got money down on the Titans over 9 wins this year. And I sprinkled in $10 on Derrick Henry plus 5,000 to win the NFL MVP. So the question we're asking now is, what would have to happen for Derrick Henry to be an MVP candidate? I'm talking like final 3. So what would have to happen? So let's read some comments real quick. MTL Titan says, Titans win at least 13 games, and he has 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns. I'll look up the MVP odds for Tannehill here in a second. Juan says he needs to be leading rusher, and the Titans would have to be the number 1 seed. Dom says Derrick Henry was born an MVP candidate. Zach probably agrees with that. Titans for Life says 2,000 yards minimum.
I know you've been doubting him his entire life since he came out of the womb. So
that's right.
That's not surprising.
2,000 yards minimum with a bad record, 1,700 yards with a good record. Let's just say this. If he's 2,000 yards and the Titans don't make the playoffs, that's basically what happened in 2009. Derrick Henry might win the AFC Offensive Player of the Year, but he ain't sniffing.
You're going to get the same results as CJ.
Right, which was AFC Offensive Player of the Year. Alex says he would need to hit 2,000 yards and win a Super Bowl. Let's also remember that the playoffs mean 0 when it comes to the NFL MVP. It is a regular season award. So this is about regular season. So Alex says 2,000 yards. Let's see. Titans 828 fan 1 says 2,000 yards plus 15 touchdowns plus a top 2 seed. So Zach, what do you think?
I think you can do it 2 ways.
Okay.
I think the first way is what we've already established is a 2,000-yard season. I think he becomes a candidate. He becomes in the conversation. That's historic, right? How many people have done a 2,000-yard rush for 2,000 yards this season?
7 or 8. Adrian Peterson might have been the 8th.
I want to say it's under 10.
Yeah.
So that is good company, right? The other way he does this, and it was actually brought up earlier, is you dominate on the field and your team like Lamar Jackson did. You are clear-cut the best team in the NFL for the majority, the entire season. That's what the Ravens were, right? And the 49ers were really, really good. They had the win streak for most of the year, but they didn't have the singular player, right? They did it by defense, and they did it by a running game. Jimmy Garoppolo was not spectacular all season.
Right.
Lamar Jackson was.
Lamar Jackson led the NFL in passing touchdowns last year.
So Derrick Henry can do it 2 ways. A 2,000-yard season, or the Titans are the clear-cut number 1 best team in the NFL, get the bye in the AFC. He rushes for 1,700 to 1,800 yards and has a ton of touchdowns. That will make him a candidate. Hell, that may even win it. But those are the only 2 ways that it had team success combined with individual or historic individual success.
Yeah, I think if the Titans are the number 1 seed in the AFC, and let's say they win 13 plus games, and he's leading the NFL in rushing, he's leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns, he has a better passing or receiving numbers than he did last year. Let's say a total of 2,000 yards from scrimmage and like 20 touchdowns total for Derrick Henry, and their 13-win team, and they have a bye. I think he has a legit shot to win the MVP. But
you also have to, and the big thing in this conversation, Austin, is who is his competition at the end? Right. Are we talking about Lamar Jackson getting back-to-back MVPs, or Patrick Mahomes, the defending Super Bowl champion?
Getting 2 or 3 years, yeah.
Right. Or is it Tom Brady resurrecting himself and throwing 50 touchdowns? Because that'd win Tom Brady the MVP real quick.
Oh, so what has to happen for Derrick Henry to be an MVP candidate? I think Tom Brady can't have a stellar season. I think an injury probably occurs to either Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. I'm not predicting that to happen or hoping it happens. I'm just throwing out like a potential possibility, because the reason why Mahomes didn't win MVP last year because he had a dislocated kneecap for about a month or so and was still really damn good. So I think
you know what, Austin? There's probably about 5,000 reasons why it's probably not going to happen.
Well, yeah, of course. And then it's plus 5,000 for a reason. Like, you're absolutely right. But I thought, hey, why not take a flyer? Why not sprinkle $10 down on Derrick Henry to win the MVP plus 5,000 and use my bookie code, my Titans, to do that? And you're playing with house money.
All right. What are your 3 bets and how much did you put on each?
All right. So, I've made 4 bets, but
I don't care. We've already talked about that. There's 3. Go to the title of the show.
Okay. The 3 bets: Titans to win the AFC South at plus 150. I put 20 down on that. The Titans over 9 wins at plus 110. I put 15 on that. And then Derrick Henry, NFL MVP, plus 5,000. I put $10 on that.
Not a lot of money, but
no, of course. But I play for entertainment. I'm not playing to get rich. I'm not playing to pay bills with this. I'm playing to have fun.
You're a slots guy. You like going to the casino. You're a slots guy.
This is just I'm entering my second football season of betting. Last year was my first year, right? And somebody asked me earlier in the show, like, what my record's like. Well, in my mortgage bets and mortgage picks and our college football picks, the last 3 years, I've beaten Zach for the season all 3 years. I'm 3-0 against Zach. But last year, in my bank account, on the site that I used last year, I tripled my money in one season. So I have success. I pick and choose my spots. I don't put crazy money down.
You start raising the bet.
What?
Move on from the slots, go to the tables. Start.
But again, like, this is also, it's a weird year because there's been no preseason. Like, I didn't want to put any money down on Texans Chiefs last night because I had no idea what was going to happen. Right?
What do you mean?
I didn't know what last night was going to look like when it comes to the teams on the field. How rusty would they be, or would they be ready to go? What would the Texans look like? Would the Chiefs be hangover from the Super Bowl? So I didn't place any money on last night.
But the funny thing, it was what we thought it was going to be.
I know that, but again, like, you don't bet money, so like you don't do bets like this. So you have to pick and choose your spots. I chose to sit out last night. I feel like I know enough about the Tennessee Titans to bet on them long term for the season. And I got, I put $50 down the money line for Monday. That's my big bet out of the gates to see what I can do increasing my bankroll.
Why'd you do that if you didn't know what was going to happen, though?
Well, they signed because I've actually seen.
No, that was before they didn't sign.
I've watched the Titans practice. I've watched training camp
3 times,
4 times.
I know your reasoning doesn't make sense based on what you just said. That's all I'm saying.
I knew Ryan Tannehill looked really good in practice from day one. I bookended training camp. I went to the first practice. I went to the last practice of training camp, and Ryan Tannehill looks really good. Derrick Henry is ready to go. The offensive line, ready to go. The defense has gotten better. The reason why I put that down with Titans against the Broncos is because they just signed Clowney, and I was riding that high that we were all riding last weekend with crazy numbers on social media and views and all that. And so I put $50 down on that, and it just happened that Von Miller broke his ankle or something, and injuries happened with the Broncos, and I got good value with what I did.
All right, so Jared lets us transition into our next topic. He says, kind of boring without the fans' energy last night. I want to talk about that because I feel like everybody that is watching this show watched the game last night. I mean, if you had a pulse and you like America, you were watching that game last night. A lot of things happened, though, from the start to the finish, right? And there was not a lot of fans in there. There's only 22% of fans in there. We're going to ask you about this game. The Chiefs defeated the Texans pretty handily. The Texans made a push late, but the Chiefs had that in hand for most of the game. I want to know what your experience, what you thought about it, Austin, and everybody's else. But first, tell the great folks about one of our fine sponsors.
Yes, I'm going to tell you guys about the Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org. That is where to go. Make sure whenever that injury happens, and it's likely to occur, people get hurt in life, whether it's Zach falling off a curb at my bachelor party or me spraining my ankle horribly playing flag football. injuries happen, and you need to
time out. I want to talk about this because I actually thought about this earlier this week, and I hadn't thought about that injury. Okay. So if you just hadn't been watching the show, I went on Austin's bachelor party a couple of years ago, and it was Saturday night. We were flying back Sunday. It was Saturday night at 2:30 a.m.
We were getting in the cab to go home to end the weekend.
And I had about 30 beers, and I tripped over an imaginary curb, and I busted my shoulder. I hurt my AC joint. That was what it ended up being.
Right.
And I was thinking about that. I was like, there's nothing worse than drunk injuries waking up the next morning. And if you partake in that kind of stuff, we've all gotten injured being drunk, and I've gotten injured numerous times being drunk. There's nothing worse waking up the next morning and trying to either put the pieces together or saying, God, that was so stupid.
Everything hurts. But who did you go to? You went to Dr. Thomas at the Bone and Joint Institute after you hurt your shoulder, and the Bone and Joint Institute can make sure they help you out. boneandjointtn.org is where to go.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Chiefs because they looked really, really good last night. It's hard to beat that offense, Austin. So before we dive into the game, here's my experience. I'm going to play a little guessing game, Austin. Okay. So I'm breathing this morning. I'm not dead. I feel great, feel fantastic. And I went to a bar last night.
Okay.
And I enjoyed a cold beverage. I didn't bust my shoulder last night, but I sat at the bar, ate some wings, watched the game. It was enjoyable. Guess who was sitting probably, I don't know, at a table 10 feet from me?
I mean,
has to do with the Tennessee Titans. That's the one hint that I'm going to give you.
It had it's a Titans employee?
A past Titans employee. That's the last hint I'm going to give you.
Is it Steve Underwood?
No, it was not the mustache man himself.
That would have been amazing.
Though he did have a mustache and actually a thicker beard than I recognized.
Jeff Fisher.
Jeff Fisher was
really
there.
Close. I picked two mustaches.
Yeah, you were close. He was rocking a tie-dyed Pred shirt too. He looked like a badass. He looked like a cool dude. You know, like you see a guy, he just looked like a cool dude. I knew obviously who he was.
Tom said so. It was not Isaiah Wilson.
No, we were not on a second balcony throwing a party, throwing a Ragers, funneling beer. But I did see Jeff Fisher over there. He's enjoying the game. He was out. Look, COVID can't keep everybody down, But last night, I thought the NFL did a spectacular job with what they had to deal with, right? The pressures of the Corona bros in our society breathing down their neck saying, don't play, don't go out of your house, all this stuff. Look, Kansas City had fans. And when they actually panned, like you were watching the game, you didn't see the fans, right? It wasn't like a huge shot of the stands. Yeah. The only time is when they turned and you saw like a kickoff or field goal or something like that. It felt like football. I had no problem with it. I loved it.
I agree. I thought the fans that were there at times got pretty loud. And you even heard Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth mention that the 17,000 or so or however many fans got pretty loud at times. But there were a couple moments where I felt like it was typically when the referee was speaking. When the referee was speaking on mic, it sounded to me like the second half of a preseason game. And I wonder if it's just because the on-field mic, there was less human bodies to absorb that sound. So it's probably bouncing off of more seats and just stadium in general. And so at only those moments, which there were very few penalties, there was a couple reviews, but only those moments when the referee was using his on-field mic to talk that I could really tell the stadium was empty. And that's such like a nerdy, minute, tiny thing, nuanced thing for me to notice.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It looked like the second half of a preseason game. I actually said that last night. That's exactly what it looked like. But it didn't feel like, the Chiefs' kingdom raining down on the Texans and they're so jacked up because they just won the Super Bowl a year ago. That's unfortunate for Chiefs fans, right? I mean, they got their parade, which is awesome. The people that win the Super Bowl this year probably not going to get a parade. That would be oh my gosh! I just had a terrible image.
Don't you?
God. Oh my God. That would be the worst. You know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I know. If the Titans win the Super Bowl and there's no parade that you can be a part of,
I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah, I know.
I'm the mayor, and I'm going to blame the damn mayor. But beside the point, we got good news. It's Friday.
Yes.
We got really good news this week too.
Weird news.
But I liked it, right? And so the big problem, speaking of COVID, I thought the real work begins now, right? So you've played a game. You've put people together. Now the testing of the next several days COVID is a virus that has traveled through the air, right? People are going to get it. Probably not going to die if you're a healthy human being, but they have to start monitoring that because the media corona bros are going to be licking their chops waiting on a positive test.
Let's think about this with a little bit of common sense, right? If the NFL has gone up until tonight, like the last 30 days, and they showed this, they did like over 60,000 tests on players, and they had 5 new cases out of those 60,000 tests, right? So obviously the Texans and the Chiefs got into last night with 0 positive tests at anybody who was actually there involved in the game, right? So there's no concern about there being transmission in the game. Now you're only worried about travel, right? And that's to and from airplane, to and from airport. And right now, those 2 things are being cleaned more than they ever have been cleaned since they were built. And also, it's not like these NFL teams are like me and you and all of us going to the airport. We don't have to go through security, and we don't have to go sit at a terminal and go grab a snack at the snack stand and then sit there with a bunch of other people. They go on a special driveway. They go up and walk directly on the plane. The plane flies. The plane lands. They get off, and they walk into a bus. So it's not like they're mixing with other people in society. It's just themselves. So I feel like as long as the players themselves, when they're at home and night before the game, because think about this. Titans are going to Denver. What are they going to do on Sunday night and Monday while they're waiting 18 hours before they play at 8 p.m. or whatever it is? What are they going to do in Denver? And how?
I think it'll be strict. I know it's hard.
Going to be strict.
It's hard to keep grown men from leaving and doing things, but if this is the year to justify like we're a team, don't mess this up, I think you could pull that card.
Right now, it's easy. The first month of the season, that's easy. But what happens in October when the Jags are 1-8 and they don't care anymore, and they're like, screw this, I don't want to sit in my hotel room in city X, I want to go walk around. And that's the situation, right? So I think right now everything should be fine. Once you get into month 2, month 3 of the season, when some teams suck and have kind of given up on it and they're not willing to stick with the strict protocols, that's where some danger could possibly occur.
2 things. Shondell brings this up. It says 2 of the 5 was the big panda, alluding to Isaiah Wilson. We don't know that he actually got it. He was just placed on the list. So I think the NFL uses that to their advantage, right?
Of course, yes.
They're not going to tell you. That's what Oklahoma and Georgia and all these schools, they're saying, hey, go kick bricks. We're not going to give the Corona ticks and the media members an opportunity to kill our program, kill our franchise, and just completely tear us down on social media because they're not going to release that information. So they're not wrong. He was placed on the COVID list, but it doesn't mean that Isaiah Wilson actually had COVID. Here's the other thing I want to ask you, Austin.
Yeah.
What do you think about like the masks, right? So you got refs wearing masks. You got Bill O'Brien wearing masks. You got Andy Reid being a beekeeper. Like, what do you think about that?
I don't care. I am numb to masks. Like sometimes when I'm wearing a mask, I forget.
You are, but now seeing him on national television, it was different.
It doesn't matter. No, honestly, it doesn't matter to me. It does not matter to me. I thought Andy Reid's face shield was funny. I saw somebody joke about Andy Reid being used to a fogged up glass because he gets frozen pizza at the grocery store a lot too. Like I thought that was hilarious. But look, I don't care. Like masks don't faze me. Wearing a mask or seeing other people wearing a mask, that doesn't faze me whatsoever. I don't care.
So here's a personal problem. Maybe everybody has this problem. I can wear a mask inside a place. I don't mind that. Like that's fine. I'll protect that. The real thing that pisses me off and that disrupts my life is when I have to get up and go to the bathroom in the restaurant and then put my mask on and then come back and do the same thing. I don't like that.
Well,
I will wear a mask in the grocery store in a place and all that. That's the one thing I don't like about a mask, and it drives me nuts. But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah,
I don't actually have a full. I think it looks terrible. Like I don't like it because it reminds people of COVID. But Andy Reid, maybe he's well, let's just face it, he's slightly overweight and he's older. So maybe he's more susceptible to he's got to protect himself, right? It's every man for himself in this world and in this life. So I get that. So I'm not going to tear these guys down for wearing a mask. I understand
it's not up to them. I mean, good Lord, Zach. Like, nobody wants to wear a mask. Nobody likes wearing a mask. But yes, but
it is up to them. They could fight that if they wanted to.
But that's just not a battle.
But you said it's not up to them. It is.
It's not up to the players. The league has mandated that for everybody who is not wearing a helmet. It's not that big of a deal, guys. Like, wear a mask, and hopefully we don't have to wear them for too much longer. I don't know.
But that's my issue, Austin. Okay. You don't know when we get to stop.
So let's get to on the field stuff, because big takeaways from the Chiefs, and we'll get to your takeaways about the Texans. But I want to know, what was y'all's biggest takeaway last night watching the Kansas City Chiefs? Because honestly, I feel like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is like not even fair on that offense. Like, that guy is going to be a problem. And I want to go ahead and play a video, WilsonCountyHyundai.com clip of the day of Clyde Edwards-Helaire just looking like a cheat code on an already elite Chiefs offense.
Good offensive line. 2nd down and 3. Big hole. Edwards-Helaire will take it to the end zone. What a debut for this guy. And he's over 100 yards. That's 102 yards on a 27-yard touchdown run.
The only complaint I ever had about this Kansas City Chiefs offense was they weren't really physical on the offensive line. They didn't get a lot of push. Kelechi Osemele may be changing that for Kansas City.
That cut that he made on Justin Reed, and thanks again, WilsonCountyHyundai.com for that clip. But that cut that he made on Justin Reed, who's a really good safety, number 20 in the Texans, out of Stanford, second-year guy, really good. But my Lord, he made him look bad. And go ahead.
I was going to respond to say he reminded me of a very young, with smaller legs, Maurice Jones-Drew. The way that he moves and kind of waddles, but goes really fast through the line. He was very impressive. I actually had an emotional disconnect with Helaire, because in my fantasy draft, it was either him or Michael Thomas, and I chose Michael Thomas. But I also have Patrick Mahomes on my team. So I'm like, did I make a big mistake after last night? Because he looks like he's going to be really, really good.
I think Titan 212 says they're thinking Westbrook. Brian Westbrook could be something. I mean,
that's a great. I think when rookies come in, we always try to compare, right?
Yeah, like, who does he look like that we know before? And I think I saw Alan Bell of 24/7 mention that he looks like he has a little Arian Foster in him because of the way he runs the zone running game. I think that's fair too. But my biggest takeaway from the Chiefs offense now is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his first NFL game, had 25 carries, 138 yards, and 1 touchdown that you just saw right there. They didn't even throw him. They threw him 2 passes that were incomplete. He didn't catch the football. And that's the scariest part about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is him out of the backfield catching the football, and they didn't even need that last night. Then listen to this stat from Diana Rossini, Zach. The Chiefs are 14-1 with Mahomes when they win the time of possession, and that includes the playoffs. The Chiefs last night averaged 5 minutes and 25 seconds of possession on their 4 touchdown drives. So 5:25 on their 4 touchdown drives. Last season on their touchdown drives, they averaged 3 minutes and 38 seconds. So 14-1 with Mahomes when they win time of possession, and they just increased their average touchdown drive by over a minute and a half. That is what terrifies me of the Chiefs are now going to be in way more control this year with the ability of that running game with Clyde Edwards-Helaire than last year, and that's bad news for everybody else.
My biggest takeaway from the Chiefs is I think it foreshadowed what we're going to see earlier this season. And the Titans, I would put them in this category. The teams that have offenses, especially offenses, that they've been running for years with the same players and the same coaches are going to do very well. Like Patrick Mahomes, I mean, we saw the best of the best last night, but that catch by Travis Kelce in the touchdown, that was not a route. That was pure feel. Mahomes knowing that Kelce was going to be there because they'd run that route thousands of times. Right. So Joe Burrow will not have that with AJ Green. They're just working behind the 8 ball in weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm curious to see what, new quarterbacks like Tom Brady and Bruce Arians, new offense. How is that going to work with the chemistry? Because my one takeaway from the Chiefs last night is they've got chemistry, and man, is it working.
Yeah, it's really good. Houston says it's one game against a terrible defense, but they won the Super Bowl, and they're a really good team.
So let's talk about that. What was the biggest takeaway for the Texans?
Well, we're going to get to that in a second. DJ is correct. The one loss in that time of possession stat I just read, 14-1 under Mahomes when they have the time of possession win. The one loss is to the Titans last year. That was interesting too. And so more comments here. He thinks MJD.
Let's get to the question.
Okay. Fine. Ask the question again.
Well, what's the biggest takeaway from the Texans? We talked a lot about the Chiefs. We've diagnosed that. What's the biggest takeaway about the Texans last night, Austin?
All right. Tell people about Tucker Agency real quick first.
Tucker Agency can help you out in your time of need. Look, if you're trying to save some money, look, it's a tough time, Coronaville. We all know that. TuckerTN.com is the website. That is where you need to go. Email Will Tucker. He has this Nashville's independent insurance agency. He does life insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance. He'll bundle your policy together under an umbrella and save you 20%. 20% is the average savings of a customer when they type in, hey, I heard you on A to Z Sports. How do I save money on my insurance? Will@TuckerTN.com is the email. Go there, Will@TuckerTN.com.
All right, A to Z Sports here live on a Thursday. Zach, we're asking the question here. What was the biggest takeaway from the Texans last night? Rice School says the Texans are nothing offensively without Hopkins. DJ says the biggest takeaway is they're missing their wide receiver 1. Kevin says David Johnson looked rejuvenated. Nate says no DeAndre Hopkins. Steph says I'm not on the David Johnson will be good train, LOL. Jared says the fact there's not one solid target for Watson. He's got a few people to throw to, including his running back. I disagree with that. I think Will Fuller, when healthy, you have to add that is solid. I think Kenny Stills, when healthy, you have to add that is solid. Brandon Cooks, I think in time, once they get more reps, will be solid as well when healthy. That's the thing. With all the Texans wide receivers, including Randall Cobb, you have to follow it up with when healthy. And that's just not because they play football and everybody gets hurt. It's because those guys, all 4 of them, get hurt a lot. And that's the overall issue.
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway is the Texans looked exactly how I had assumed the Texans would look against the Chiefs. Like that game went exactly how I thought. Is to the viewer's point, they're missing their number 1 wide receiver. They don't have an out when they get down 14 that when you throw it to DeAndre Hopkins, he will catch it because he does not drop footballs. It's pretty impressive, right? That's the biggest takeaway is Bill O'Brien going into the season didn't do enough because of the disruption. You saw the DeAndre Hopkins shade that he was throwing on Twitter after the game saying essentially he's glad he got the hell out of there. And the Texans are what we all thought they are. And so last night that just came to fruition.
And for me, my biggest takeaway was not what I was reacting to about the wide receivers, was that I think the Texans' offensive line is still a massive problem. and they can't push the ball down the field. If Watson's not – if they're going to keep Watson healthy and upright, they're going to have to throw the ball quick. And so – and they don't necessarily have Hopkins, like you're saying, to just chuck it up there and hope that he comes down with it. They have to use these quick passes, which means they're not going to be that explosive. They're going to be more horizontal than vertical. And DeAndre Hopkins is going to have to earn every touchdown they get and work down the field with 10-play-plus drives. And that's hard to do in the NFL on a consistent basis. So that's my biggest takeaway is they can't throw the ball down the field because that offensive line is still pretty weak.
Yeah, and for Titans fans, this is a worse Texans team than, let's just say, that they've seen in the last 5 years. I mean, it is. And it's because they don't have the players. And that's Bill O'Brien's fault. Well,
yeah, it is.
It's a trickle down. I've said this. It's the Texans ownership that has given Bill O'Brien the ability to mess this up. That's the real reason why.
Right. And they had no answer. Like, they came out on the Texans opening drive. They go down there, run the ball with David Johnson. He makes some nice plays, and he scores a touchdown. They're up 7-0, and then boom, it's 31-7 3 quarters later. And I tell you what, David Johnson looked good, but you know who looked bad? Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson looks awful. Like, I don't know why, like, Duke Johnson gets reps. I don't know David Johnson from Miami. Don't mess with me on that. But yeah, they didn't make any adjustments.
We've already played that game.
I know.
And I did mess with you and I won. But Trucks 1982, I think the Texans, I agree with this statement. The Texans look like a 7-9 team.
Yeah,
one game, not going to overreact.
Yeah.
But everything that we knew leading up to this season, now we know, we saw them actually play, they look like a 7-9 team.
Yeah. They don't look good. And I think here's the crazy thing is Bill O'Brien, I think it was Michelle Tafoya or Chris Collinsworth who was talking about like why they had to trade DeAndre Hopkins away because they couldn't pay him $20 million a year. Zach Cunningham got abused a few times last night, but that's kind of the nature of the position. Their offensive line's bad. They didn't draft well there. Like, they're paying a lot of guys not named DeAndre Hopkins a lot of money. And that's where I feel like they should. DeAndre Hopkins erased issues the Texans offense had. And now they're being exposed.
They had gone to the playoffs the last 2 years, and then they decided to, like, okay, it's time to reset. No, you don't do that.
They've won the division the last 2 years. They've won the division 4 out of the last 2 years, and they say we need to move away from our best weapon for our quarterback. They also
last 6, not
4 last 6, yeah. But they also don't have an actual like proven tight end for Deshaun Watson either, which doesn't make any sense to me.
They need your boy Hawkeye.
They could have used him, but they won the division, so they were drafting too late to draft a top 10 player in that draft, TJ Hawkinson. All right, A to Z Sports here live on a Friday. Brent says Texans trading Clowney and Hopkins has made them irrelevant. It wasn't broke, but they tried to fix it. Basically, that's kind of what it was. All right, A to Z Sports here live on a Friday. Zach, it is time for Ain't That Good News, which for 2 weeks in a row will get embarrassing, this time for me. But first, let me tell you guys about Mandu, the pulse of fitness, where one 15-minute workout equals 5 hours in the weight room. Mandu.com. Your first workout is free. It's full body electronic muscle stimulation, and you're not putting any stress on your joints, on your body. Just a lot of great workout, building muscle, getting that hard to burn body fat to activate, so you get rid of that. I've had tremendous results. I've dropped my body fat percentage by over 10% in the last year. So Mandu.com, your first workout is free, and it's great during the pandemic because it's by appointment. Mandu.com is where to go.
A to Z Sports, we talked a lot about bets today. MyBookie.ag. Sign up before the season, before the Titans. Austin gave you 3 good bets. I would take one out of those 3, but you could put $10 like he did on plus 5,000 of Derrick Henry winning the MVP. You may wind up with $500 at the end of the season. If you put $500 in to start the season, you're actually going to start the season with $1,000 with code MyTitans at MyBookie.ag.
All right, A to Z Sports here live on Ain't That Good News. the magic bucket does what the magic bucket does. So Zach,
I'm going to let you, you know what? I'm going to stand back. I'm going to let you do what you do.
There we go. My wife showed me how to do that properly last night. So the magic bucket does what the magic bucket does. And so 2 weeks in a row, the magic bucket made me and Zach both have to wear red lipstick on the show during the good news segment. So here I am looking like a clown on a Friday to send us into a NFL weekend.
What's your good news?
I have two things of good news. First, I hate Skip Bayless. I know you do too, Zach, and I know a lot of people do. And I do think it's good news that collectively, as a sports nation, we get to all go hate Skip Bayless at the same time.
They should fire him then. They should fire him.
You think
and they won't.
They won't fire him because he makes too much money for them because
right. And so why can society cancel so many people, but they can't cancel Skip Bayless when he messes up? And I'm curious to see. And Austin, to your credit, I had the exact same good news, but I thought to myself, and I don't mind you bringing it up. I was like, I'm not going to bring that SOB up on the show. But now that you have, we got to dive into it.
Well, and
you got to update on what happened.
Well, yeah, so Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe, I don't even know the name of their show on FS1. I don't watch it. I don't know it. I have Skip Bayless muted on Twitter, so I rarely see him retweet into my timeline. But he basically called out Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott opened up about in April, his brother committed suicide. Dak Prescott said that he fell into some depression and that the quarantine made it easier for him to fall in that depression, and he struggled personally with a lot of things over this spring with his brother's death via suicide. And Skip Bayless basically called him out for being soft and how leaders or his teammates will not view him as a strong leader because he was depressed after his brother committed suicide. It was a stupid take, awful. It was like, it doesn't even make any, I don't even know why Skip Bayless even thought that way. Shannon Sharpe, I thought, handled it really well. Could have been a lot harder on Skip Bayless, but didn't. But it was really, really bad. And it's something where we should know better than that as people to treat mental health more seriously. And Skip Bayless looked like an absolute idiot. And I thought Scott Van Pelt did his one big thing last night. And he didn't even mention Skip Bayless's name. He just talked about the Dak Prescott story. And he basically said, people who cannot show compassion aren't worth your time or your concern. So I take that as, remember this forever. Remember this. Skip Bayless is never worth your time, and he's not worth concerning about. So I'm talking about him now, and this is the only time I've ever talked about Skip Bayless on this show, really. Skip Bayless is not worth it. So let's all remember that. It's an evergreen quote from SVP. Skip Bayless is not worth your time or concern.
So I thought you did a good job of explaining exactly what it is. And as you were doing that, I downloaded the video for our viewers to watch. It's not the greatest quality, but you get the gist.
I'm going to ask our audience to feel free to go ahead and condemn me if you choose as cold-blooded and insensitive on this issue. I have deep compassion for clinical depression. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the quarterback of an NFL team, you know this as well as better than I do. It's the ultimate leadership position in sports. Am I right about that? Mm-hmm. You are commanding an entire franchise. What's the roster now? Is it 53 still?
53, but yeah. I think they got like 15 practice squad guys.
Okay. But you're commanding a lot of young men and some older men. And they're all looking to you to be their CEO, to be in charge of the football team. Because of all that, I don't have sympathy for him going public with, I got depressed. I suffered depression early in COVID to the point that I couldn't even go work out. Look, he's the quarterback of America's team.
So here's my issue with that. Everybody has everybody has skeletons, demons, things that have made their life hard. That's what life is about, right? I've had people die. I've had people pass away, have people, friends leave you, all that stuff, relationships end that hurt you. My issue is that Skip Bayless, I would bet, has never talked to Dak Prescott. Right? Like he doesn't know him on any emotional level. And
probably not.
I understand what Skip Bayless was trying to say, but just like most moms tell you, think before you speak. This was an example of Skip Bayless not thinking, which he usually does. He doesn't think. My issue is what I said at the beginning is Fox should fire his dumbass, and they won't because of the money. Cancel culture shouldn't just be pick and choose. But if we are going to ream people for doing bad things in other areas of our society, but not ream people with losing their job based on mental health because it's not a movement yet, I have an issue with that, right? This is uncalled for, just like racism is uncalled for, just like sexism is uncalled for. This guy, he's calling somebody out that doesn't know anything. Yes, there are different levels of that. I completely understand. But Fox should fire him, and they won't, Austin, because you're absolutely right. His contract is not beneficial for Fox to fire him.
Correct. A to Z Sports here on Ain't That Good News. So my good news was that everybody has rallied to back up and to have Dak Prescott's back in this moment and to go after and call out Skip Bayless. So that was also your good news, Zach?
No, I have different good news.
Oh, okay. So go ahead, because I have one more good news. It's a light note that I'll say out the door, but I'll let you go ahead.
My good news is also a light note. My good news brings hope. My good news brings hardware. And I'll hold the trophy. Yancey? Incomplete. We'll take it. Super Bowl champs. 2-time. Win the game. And the Titans win the game. Woo! Wow. 35-32. Congratulations. Hello. There you go. Back-to-back Super Bowl champs in Blitz. It was a long road in Blitz 2000, a long road in Blitz 2001. I've been playing this video game for the last couple of months, a video game I absolutely love. Shout out to everybody that watched me play this video game. I had a ton of fun. I hope you did too. There's more plans to expand on that. But my good news is that chapter has come to an end. So we got to move on to bigger and better things. But it feels good to be back-to-back Super Bowl champs. And let's just face it, Austin, I do think this goes unnoticed. I'm not saying it was a big stage like, Cristiano Ronaldo scoring a game-winning goal in front of 150,000 people. Mm-hmm. But playing video games when a bunch of people are criticizing you why are you blitzing the safety? That was a dumb pass. There's some pressure involved, but I didn't crack. And I got 2 Vince Lombardi trophies that are virtual.
Johnny asked, are you having a parade, Zach?
Yes. No masks are required. We're having a parade, a virtual parade. Throw your mask, burn your mask. This one's for the mayor. Virtual parade to celebrate our Super Bowl.
All right. My ending good news to send us to the weekend. This is going to be funny. I saw this tweet this morning right before the show from Tennessee Chris. Friday fun fact. In 1974, Ramses II was sent on a flight to Paris for preservation work. Since French law required every person living or dead to fly with a valid passport, Egypt was forced to issue a passport to the pharaoh 3,000 years after his death. So here, for you guys' viewing pleasure, is the passport of an Egyptian pharaoh who was turned into a mummy. This is an actual passport for Ramses II, who is a mummy who had to have a passport to fly to France to get some extra work done. And I just found this absolutely hilarious. I don't know if it's real or not, but it's too damn funny to ignore that the date of birth is unknown. Or right there, 1303 BC, nationality Egyptian. My favorite thing was his profession is king. It's got him as deceased. And the passport still does expire at some point. It expired in 1981. So that was my extra good news in this, is that an Egyptian pharaoh king mummy had to have a passport 3,000 years after he died.
That's hilarious. That's a great way to end a Friday, a short week, but a long week, and football is back. But that's the key. I think every person has thought of this, maybe man or woman, king or queen, is what would it be like if because you're born into it, right? I mean, like, you don't do anything. I mean, sometimes you overtake and become special, but usually the monarch system is like, you become king. How cool would that be? Cool. A lot of responsibility. And then history, does it show you're a good king or you're a bad king? Are you a good pharaoh or a bad pharaoh? I've always thought about that. I want an opportunity, maybe in another life, to be king, just to see how it is.
Ethan says dead but still smiling. It's great. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Sunday, big day, because the NFL full slate going into Monday Night Football, Titans, Broncos. We've got more news to talk about on Monday morning. Buck Rising will have loaded content over the weekend as well. So make sure you're following us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere. A to Z Sports, wherever you get, wherever you follow on social media.
Two things before we go. And Sawyer brings up 9/11. It is September 11th. We remember those from that time, and the World Trade Towers. That was everybody knows where they were if you were alive. Well, when that happened, that was a terrible, terrible day. But we will remember those. The other thing, in Austin, you said Sunday. A to Z, moving on up the chain. Sunday, we'll have some very cool news that A to Z Sports has been working on in the background, in the shadows over the last several months. So we will unveil that on Sunday.
That is correct. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Have a safe weekend. Buck Rising, we'll see you Sunday night, and we'll have that news for you Sunday evening as well. Thanks. We'll see you later.
Adios.